Yeah, thanks so much for the intro. I'm going to dive in. So today I'm going to be talking about building AI chat apps. Specifically, this is the ext-apps extension to MCP. So first, how many people have heard of MCP? How many people specifically have heard of MCP apps, the ext-apps extension? Okay, still quite a few. It's been mentioned quite a bit, or a handful of times today. I would start with just diving in and looking at what a chat app looks like. So this chat app that I'm showing is a to-do list. And I believe there was actually a speaker earlier, potentially in this room, that said, oh, a good example of a chat app would be a to-do list. So here we go. Here's a to-do list. So what's it look like? This is actually using MCP Jam, which is a great environment for trying out all things MCP. And we've got a chat app hooked up to it, which is a to-do list. So I'm able to type the prompt, create a new to-do list, and show it to me. And it creates a to-do list, and it shows it. And so the magic of MCP apps is these are effectively web apps that I can embed directly in my chat. So this is a real web app. I can learn about MCP apps. I can reorder these things. I can ask to add another to-do for finding a great restaurant in SF today. And, there we go. And if I scroll up, I see that sure enough, I've got another to-do. So this is actually a React app. It's reactive. When data changes in the backend, we see it in the front end. Okay, that is an MCP app. And we're going to talk a little bit about MCP apps and then specifically how to build them. So this specific app was built maybe about an hour ago by a robot. This was the completion of the robot building it. And yes, I built it with truly vibe coded. I didn't say anything. It didn't ask me anything. It just did it all. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to start this again. I'm going to do this fun thing where I'm going to delete that to-do list app. Actually, it's going to have a hard time doing that because I've got stuff running here. So let me stop running all those things. This just adds to the fun of the talks, right? When we do fun things like this for the speakers, I mean. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete it again. I'm also going to blow away all my history with Claude. So nothing there, and I'm going to start again from scratch. First, I'm going to install some skills specifically for building these Reboot chat apps. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to get the plugin installed, and I'm going to go into Claude. Oops, let's try that again. I'm going to go into Claude, bypassing permissions. There we go, that's important. Yeah, let's go ahead and authorize it. Cool. You can see the app is now down because I completely nuked it. Yes, I accept we're bypassing permissions. Okay, and we're going to try this again. So these are the skills for building this app. All the instructions that I just did are right here. And I'm going to go ahead and say, build a to-do list app with a drag to reorder. Okay, and it's going to start. And I'll jump back to this in just a second because it probably is going to transition into plan mode before it starts building. So I will need to, after plan mode, say, let's go ahead and let's build. But let's let it do its thing while it goes ahead and does the plan. And meanwhile, I'm going to go back to talking a bit more about AI chat apps. Okay. I'll be really quick here. Just who am I? Adam had a great introduction. I was creator of one of the early container orchestrators, Apache Mesos. Who's heard of Apache Mesos? All right, awesome. We really like to think of it as the BSD to Kubernetes. Most of you are probably using Kubernetes today. Co-founded a company called Mesosphere and then helped set up the CNCF and was on the inaugural TOC. So a lot of things, distributed systems, large scale, microservices, and now trying to think about how we can take a bunch of those ideas into how we're building AI applications. Okay, let's see if plan mode's done. It is. So plan mode's done, so go ahead and build us a to-do list. Let's see how well it does. Okay. So human-computer interaction is changing. We all know this. Search is out. Chat is in. What about apps? What's the future of apps? I think it's one of the big questions that lots of people are asking. I think the reason why search is out, and the last talk was about search, so when I say search is out, I mean humans doing search is out. Humans doing chat is in. Chat is the interface of intelligence. Right? Chat, it's surely a good interface for technology that generates tokens. Clearly, a technology that generates tokens, you're going to chat with it. That's what it's doing. But it's also the interface that intelligent things, us, use to communicate with other intelligent things, other people. So I expect that chat is going to stick around for a long time, given this evolution of AI. But it's still insufficient. There's a reason that at some point, you might be having a conversation with a peer, and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe if you can create a diagram for me, or show me in a chart, or go create some slides, or give me a form, or a table, or a graphic, or something, I'm going to be able to understand what you're talking about. Okay? So, a user interface and a user experience dramatically reduces the cognitive load for humans and increases the ability to understand ideas and information. And so presumably, we'd like to get that in our chat. Chat shouldn't be the end all. If we could get these other things in, we can be far more productive with our AI. So that's what MCP apps is effectively going for. It's AI's new UI, chat apps. And as I showed you before, it's effectively embedding UIs directly in the chat. Okay, so I think one of the things that's really interesting to me, and one of the reasons why we started working on some of this stuff, is because in the course of my career, you continue to see these paradigm shifts for apps, right? Many of us used, some of us used mainframe apps. Then eventually we had the desktop personal computing wave. We had apps that ran there. We had the web wave. Of course, we had apps that ran there, the mobile wave. And now I think there's a new opportunity for what apps look like, how we build apps, where they run, and that's in chat. So, perhaps we are somewhere right about here. I think there's some open questions. Is it going to be apps in chat, or is it going to be chat in apps? With a green hat, or not. This is a very interesting question. I think we saw, at least in the last 12 months, a lot of apps put chat within them. So I'm sure you've all seen it. You go to the app, and now there's a little chat, and it says, by the way, we might use AI, and your mileage may vary depending on how well that chat works. But that was a big wave. Apps in chat, on the other hand, have the opportunity of having multiple apps simultaneously being part of the same chat. Which again, I think ideally, as us end consumers, I think would be far more useful and productive. If, say, I'm trying to plan a trip, today I use the browser to go to, say, Hyatt and United to book my trip. It'd be nice if I could just go one place and still be communicating with both those places, but potentially get their app-like experience for completing whatever task I'm trying to do. So apps in chat is, I think, really what MCP apps and ext-apps is trying to accomplish. Is it, could it be the next paradigm for apps? It already exists. So today, you can run MCP apps in ChatGPT, Claude, VS Code, Goose, and I'm sure more soon as well. So not many apps have been built yet, but it's there. Okay, a little bit of history I wanted to give about this for folks. So there's really a convergence of two different pieces of technology that folks were working on. MCP UI, which really started sometime, I think the first release was May of 2025 last year. And OpenAI had released something called chat-apps SDK. They actually released a product that was exactly nailed at this. And things like MCP UI was being supported in Goose, and OpenAI chat apps was really specific to ChatGPT. In November of last year, collaborations began, and in January of 2026, ext-apps actually emerged as an official extension in MCP that's now being built, as I mentioned, being implemented by all these clients. So it's really a great testament to the open source communities coming together and working on something that could actually be really useful for all of us in the future. Okay, so what does a chat app look like? What does an MCP X app look like? Well, there's a client. So in this case, it could be any of those clients that I mentioned. And then the client is effectively speaking MCP or HTTPS under the covers to some servers running. They could be in Python, TypeScript. Ideally, you're running many instances of those because you may have many clients that are all trying to talk to your app simultaneously. They might be storing data in a database. I think some of the unique things about this architecture is that the Python actually serves the UI resource itself. So it was the way we think about a lot of full stack apps is you might be getting, say, your front end from a CDN, and you technically still can do that here. But there is this really important step where really to actually get the user interface for the chat app, you're hitting the back end first. And that's why for those of you that saw Jeremiah's talk earlier, he was able to actually generate complete backends from Python code and just publish it back up because that's where the UI is actually coming from. The UI itself runs in an iframe, so all the security things that need to be considered still exist there, and there's stuff that will get sorted out. Okay, so it looks a lot like a cloud-native full-stack app, is what a chat app looks like. And as it should be clear from my background, that's where I've spent a lot of my career. But those are complicated, right? There's a lot of things to think about that. So we built Reboot. It's a cloud-native framework for building AI chat apps in Python to try to eliminate a lot of those complications. Using Pydantic and FastAPI on the back end, and in this case, using React on the front end, our goal was to just make it ridiculously easy to build these apps. Okay, and I want to talk through them. Let's see how the robot did. All right, the robot's done. So I've spoken for at least 6 minutes. Let's see how it did. Earlier today, it was failing, and we found out it's because the latest version of ext-apps that was released had a bug in it. And so we needed to tell the robot in our skills to start pinning to an earlier version of it. Otherwise, we would see that bug. OK, let's see how we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and get that up and running. So that's just running the back-end code real quick. Now I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to run the React portions. So let's do that. But I'm sorry, nobody mentioned anything, but this is probably really hard to read. OK, no one still mentioned anything, so I'm just going to leave it. OK. All right. Oops. All right, here we go. And I'm in. OK, so this is going ahead and running the this gem inspector, so I'll close that. OK. So how'd we do? Did it all work? OK, so we've got a new app running. Let's go ahead and start a chat. And I think the robot suggested create a new to-do list and show it to me. All right. So let's see. Maybe this to-do list will look exactly the same. Maybe it'll look a little different. Create to-do list. OK, it looks a little different, actually. I think this is a darker gray. And I think the button was not blue before. I can't remember. I took a screenshot. Oh, it was blue, but it was white. It was white. It was a slightly different color. OK, all right, great. So, and I showed it to you before, so we'll just continue to go on. OK, so I want to talk a little bit about what we focused on when it came to trying to build these apps. OK, so specifically for Reboot. So I'm going to switch and I'm going to show some actual code. What was the code that got generated by Claude Code here? So the focus for us is really an emphasis on domain models and API. So hat tip to Ruby on Rails. That was the killer framework for the web paradigm shift. And the focus there was focus on your domain models and API. All the other stuff can change. And in this case, all the other stuff can change quite a bit by AI itself. So define the data type. So what's that look like? That looks like, yes, I'm using Emacs. That shows my age, I suppose. That looks like actually a Pydantic API. So this was again generated by the robot, but what's it look like? We've defined things like a to-do item and a to-do list state, which has things like the items. And in particular, we've defined an API. So this is kind of the core of Reboot, these higher level APIs that we can define. We've defined a to-do list. We've described what its state is, and then what methods it has on it. So it does things like being able to create the to-do list, which does writes. Show the to-do list, that's a UI. That ultimately is the UI that's being shown. Add items to the to-do list, that's doing writes. Remove items, blah, 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 toggle items, reorder items. These are all things that got generated that the robot felt like it needed to generate to actually create a fully working to-do list app. Okay, so that's the API. Now the backend, so that's defined data types. In Reboot, you implement the backend business logic for your data types as though you're just using in-memory state. So again, higher level abstraction, focus on the domain model. What does that look like? What did the Reboot, the robot generate for us? Okay, so this is our to-do list. So it looks like a data type. It's a data type. It's got things like its create function, its add item function, but there it specifically is saving state. It's manipulating its state. So all of these data types that get created, they effectively have states, and it's just adding items to its state. It's removing items from its state. It's reading, changing the order of items. It's getting the state items, so forth and so on. Super simple. Finally, what does the front end look like? Very similar as well. UI, to-do list, app.tsx. Thanks to that API, we actually generate, as part of the framework, we generate a bunch of code that makes writing the actual React code ridiculously simple. So remember, there was a function in the API called getItems. So there's a React hook that got generated called useGetItems. And there's a React hook that got generated called useToDoList. And these things are how we're actually talking to the backend. And anytime state's changing in the backend, just like React hooks feel like they're just working with in-memory state. Anytime state changes in the backend, the state in the front end is also updated. And you guys saw that. We asked in the chat, I asked it to add another item, and the item popped up in there. So a pretty small front end here, even for somebody like myself that spent most of their career in the back end, I can more or less understand this. And the reason for that is really because it's very simple and composable. These are the basic building blocks, abstractions of computer science. And these are the basic things that we expose. They're simple for humans to be able to validate, and they're extremely simple for robots to be able to generate. Because they have no idea that at the end of the day, one of the core primitives of Reboot is all these data types are stateful and persistence is taken care of for you. So they're not trying to update databases or do any of that other kind of stuff. They're just working with what feels like an in-memory program and going from there. All right, Reboot's a whole lot of other things. It's reactive in multiplayer, you saw that. It's durable. Calling between data types can be done in a completely transactional way. Somebody might have actually seen that if they looked closely. Here's another type that we have. The create to-do list method is actually a transaction. The reason why it's a transaction is because it needs to actually create a new to-do list. So that's two different data types that are simultaneously being manipulated in my program at the same time. We want to make sure that either both of those data types get manipulated or none of them do. So it's done in a transaction. And then finally, Reboot is scalable. Each of these instances of data types I can run and distribute it across as many resources as I want because they're independent. So it's a bunch of other things, but that's just high level. Okay, wrapping up. AI chat apps are the next wave of apps. They have the possibility of being the next wave of apps. I would love to see this. I would love to replace my browser with just my chat and be able to do everything thanks to whatever robot I'm currently talking to that's able to show me lots of apps, use lots of apps, do everything I want to do. It's a new it's still early days. I have to say it's still early days. I'm showing it to you in MCP Jam. If you tried it out in Claude, you might get a different experience than if you tried it out in ChatGPT. And when I say it, I mean MCP apps. I don't specifically mean Reboot. It's akin to me as the browser agent days. Like we're already having to do things like say like, oh, if we're showing this to ChatGPT, we need to make these slight tweaks versus if we're showing the UI to yada yada. That's all going to get sorted out, but now's the best time to get it on the ground floor of trying to build these apps. It's a new paradigm, but again, there's lots of existing experience to leverage. There was a couple of talks ago that said, somebody said, and I completely agree, I think a lot of what we've figured out through the DevOps movement and the ML Ops movement are still going to be ideas that we want to take advantage of for this phase. And then, for me, I think the biggest thing is, even though we have the robots that can generate a lot of the code for us, I still think that focusing on higher level abstractions is going to make it easier for them and us as humans to be able to build reliable systems. And so, that's still, I think, an important thing to consider. All right, I'm all done. I don't know if I have time for questions.
You do, we'll clap, but then we'll ask.
All right, okay.
What questions do we have for Ben?
Hey, Ben.
Hey.
Thanks for the talk. Just a practical question about, you mentioned MCP Gem. You can have React components that you visualize. Like, how do you deal with the dependencies for MCP Gem? And are there differences to like other surface like Claude and ChatGPT? You mentioned there are some differences. Like when I played with it myself, it was a bit difficult to find out like whether the client listens to the the whitelist of URLs the app can talk to, and I had to bundle in like all the React components into this single page HTML file and so on. I just wanna, was it doing something wrong?
No. So as I mentioned, your UI effectively runs inside of an iframe. So what you do inside of that iframe can be up to you, provided that whatever the parent frame has permitted you to do are the things you're trying to do. So, in our cases, what we're doing with Reboot is we are taking all that React and we're turning it into effectively just some HTML and JavaScript that we're shipping up in one fell swoop. But you could imagine splitting some of those pieces up, sticking it in a CDN. You could take other approaches. You'd still need to send an iframe as the UI resource to the client, to the chat client, and say, my iframe is go fetch my page from a CDN or something else. So that's, I think, one distinction is like there's always going to be that first hop from the chat client to the app and back. That's exposing the UI resource. Yeah.
We had another question for Ben. Yeah.
Thanks for this talk. This was excellent. I'm curious how you're addressing challenges around. You mentioned obviously, your mileage may vary across different clients and hosts. That's been our experience as well. We've got an MCP server that's trying to serving a ChatGPT app. We've got it serving MCP connectors to Claude, and we're now facing challenges around how to version and how to sniff out different changes with that versioning, and review processes versus not review processes. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on kind of how to address that kind of in a practical manner, specifically around apps.
Yeah, so I'm going to give two different answers. I think one important answer is that we continue to make ourselves and as users, our voices heard to the clients themselves in GitHub issues, in community meetings, and everything else. I think it's actually really, really important that we try to converge the implementation of MCP and MCP apps across the clients as much as possible. I think that's going to lead to far more productivity for app builders and MCP server builders. And right now it's not. As Adam mentioned, I gave a talk previously about how to try to make, say, durable or idempotent tool calls. Because technically there's a part of the MCP spec that supports or could be interpreted to support idempotency. And it's the implementation of that part of the spec is wildly different across things. So I think that's one of the most important things is actually go to the places and say like, hey, this seems like maybe it's wrong. And people are actually listening and they're like, oh, maybe let's change the implementation because it's not matching the spec. The second thing I would say though is I think for now we need to hide this stuff in the libraries. So, we have done some of that in Reboot. We've reached out to the SDK at certain points and been like, hey, have you considered maybe making something like this be generic that doesn't matter which client you're actually talking to? So I think for now, as I said, it's early days. And I think maybe we should start a blog together and we should write all the things that are different about the places, and that would be a great source for everybody, and maybe it'd be easier to get it all consistent across the stacks.
Let's thank Ben again.
Okay, thank you.